When Apple introduced Siri with the iPhone 4S in 2011, it honestly felt like a glimpse into the future. For the first time, a massive number of people had a voice assistant right in their pockets. You could ask it to set a timer, send a text message, or check the weather. It was a simple idea, but, it was revolutionary. This was not like the clunky voice commands we had seen before on old phones or in cars. Siri had a personality. It could tell jokes and respond with a bit of sass. This made it feel less like a tool and more like a character. It was our first real taste of talking to technology in a human-like way, and it set the stage for everything that would come next. In those early days, Siri operated on a very basic system. It was built around a set of pre-programmed rules and commands. It listened for specific keywords. If you said, "What is the weather like?" it was trained to recognize the words weather and what. It would then pull information from a weather service and read it back to you. But if you asked the same question in a slightly different way, like, "Should I bring an umbrella today?" it might get confused. It did not really understand the meaning behind your words. It was just matching your phrases to a list of things it knew how to do. This made for some frustrating and often funny moments. This simple command and response model was both a strength and a weakness. It was reliable for basic tasks because it was predictable. Setting an alarm or calling a contact worked most of the time, but it also showed the limits of the technology. Siri could not handle complex conversations. It could not remember what you had just said or understand context from one question to the next. Every interaction was a fresh start. This meant you had to learn how to talk to Siri, using the exact phrases it understood. We were the ones adapting to the machine, not the other way around. It was a one-way street of communication. Despite these limitations, Siri's launch was a huge cultural moment. It made the idea of a digital assistant mainstream. It appeared in movies and TV shows and became a part of our daily lives. People were excited about the possibilities. What if our phones could understand us perfectly? What if we could just talk to our devices to get things done? Siri opened the door to these questions and created a demand for something better. It was the first step on a long journey, and it inspired other tech companies to start thinking about how they could build their own voice assistants, pushing the technology forward into a new era of innovation. The next big step in the evolution of voice assistants was the shift to machine learning. Instead of just relying on pre-written rules, assistants started to learn from data. This was a game changer. Machine learning allowed these programs to analyze millions of examples of human speech. They learned to recognize patterns, accents, and different ways people ask for the same thing. Suddenly, an assistant didn't need you to say the perfect phrase. It could start to figure out what you meant, not just what you said. This is known as understanding intent. The focus moved from recognizing keywords to grasping the user's goal, which made the assistants much more flexible and powerful. This new approach made assistants feel much smarter. For example, instead of just understanding "set a timer for 10 minutes, they could now understand "remind me to check the oven in 10 minutes. The assistant could infer that your intent was to set a timer. This was a huge leap. It made interacting with them feel more natural and less robotic. We no longer had to memorize a strict set of commands. We could speak more like we would to another person. This improvement was not just about convenience. It was about building a more intuitive relationship between humans and machines, making technology more accessible to everyone, regardless of their technical skill. The power of machine learning is that it gets better over time. Every time a user spoke to their assistant, they were providing new data. The system could analyze these interactions to see what worked and what didn't. If it misunderstood a request, engineers could use that example to retrain the model. This created a cycle of continuous improvement. The more people used voice assistants, the smarter the assistants became. This feedback loop was crucial. It meant that an assistant that was just okay on day one could become incredibly good after a year of real-world use. It was a living, evolving system, constantly learning from its users. This transition was not easy. It required massive amounts of computing power and huge data sets of human speech. Companies like Google, Amazon, and Apple invested billions of dollars into research and development. They built giant data centers to process all this information. They hired experts in artificial intelligence and linguistics. The goal was to create a brain for their assistants that could process language as well as a human. This investment paid off. Assistants became much more capable, able to handle more complex questions and follow simple conversations. It was the foundation that would allow them to move from our phones into our homes. In 2014, Amazon introduced the Echo, a smart speaker powered by a voice assistant named Alexa. This was a brilliant move. Instead of living on a phone, the assistant now had a permanent home in our living rooms and kitchens. It was always on, always listening, and always ready to help. You could be cooking and ask Alexa to convert measurements, or you could be sitting on the couch and ask it to play a song. This idea of an ambient assistant, one that is just part of the environment, completely changed how we interacted with technology. It was no longer something you had to actively pick up and use. It was just there, seamlessly integrated into your daily life. Google quickly followed with its own smart speaker, Google Home, powered by the Google Assistant in 2016. This created a fierce competition between Amazon and Google. Both companies wanted their assistant to be the central hub of the smart home. They encourage other companies to make their devices, like lights, thermostats, and TVs, compatible with their assistants. This created a new ecosystem. You could now use your voice to control your entire home. Saying good morning could trigger a routine that turned on the lights, started the coffee maker, and told you about your day. It was the smart home dream finally becoming a reality for millions. The success of Alexa and Google Assistant was due to their focus on practical, everyday tasks. They were designed to be useful. People used them to set timers, manage shopping lists, listen to the news, and play music. These might seem like small things, but they added up. They made life a little bit easier and a little more convenient. The assistants also had skills or actions, which were like apps for your voice. Developers could create new abilities for Alexa and Google Assistant, expanding what they could do. You could order a pizza, call a ride, or play a trivia game, all with your voice. This made them incredibly versatile tools for the whole family. This shift into the home also changed our relationship with assistants. They were no longer just for personal tasks on our phones. They became shared devices used by everyone in the household. This made them a central part of family life. Kids used them for homework help, and parents used them to coordinate schedules. The assistants became a constant presence, a voice that was always there. This made them feel more like a part of the family, but it also raised new questions about privacy and the role of technology in our most personal spaces. The home invasion was a success, but it was just the beginning of a much bigger conversation. For years, voice assistants were great at retrieving information. They could tell you the weather, the capital of France, or the score of last night's game. They were essentially voice-operated search engines. But in late 2022, something changed dramatically with the public release of ChatGPT by OpenAI. This was not just another incremental improvement, it was a massive leap forward. ChatGPT was built on a large language model, which allowed it to do something new, generate original text. Instead of just finding answers, it could create them. It could write poems, compose emails, debug code, and explain complex topics in simple terms. This new ability completely changed what we thought an assistant could be. Suddenly, you could have a real conversation. You could ask follow-up questions, and it would remember the context. You could ask it to write a story about a brave knight and a friendly dragon, and it would do it. This generative capability made interactions feel incredibly human-like. The responses were not canned or pre-written. They were unique and created on the spot, tailored to your specific request. It felt less like you were talking to a machine, and more like you were brainstorming with a very knowledgeable and creative partner. This was a profound shift in the human-computer relationship. The breakthrough behind ChatGPT and other similar models was in their training. They were trained on an unbelievable amount of text and code from the internet. This massive dataset allowed them to learn the patterns, structures, and nuances of human language. They learned not just what words mean, but how they fit together to create meaning, tone, and style. This deep understanding is what allows them to generate coherent and contextually relevant text. When you ask ChatGPT a question, it is not searching for an answer. It is predicting the next most likely word, and the word after that, until it has formed a complete and logical response. The impact of this technology is already being felt everywhere. Companies are racing to integrate these generative AI capabilities into their own voice assistants. Soon, asking Siri or Google Assistant to write a thank you note to my aunt will be standard. These assistants will become more than just helpers. They will become collaborators. They will help us write, create, and think. This leap from information retrieval to information creation is the most significant evolution in voice assistants since their inception. It opens up a world of new possibilities, but it also raises new questions about creativity, originality, and the very nature of intelligence itself. The incredible progress we have seen in voice assistants is powered by one thing above all else: data, massive amounts of data. To learn how to understand human language, these AI models need to be trained on countless examples. They analyze text from books, websites, articles, and more, to learn grammar, context, and facts about the world. They also learn from every single interaction they have with users. Every time you ask your assistant a question, you are providing a valuable piece of data. This data is the fuel that drives their continuous improvement. The more data they have, the smarter and more capable they become. This learning process is a powerful feedback loop. When an assistant gets a request right, the system learns that its interpretation was correct. When it gets something wrong, and the user rephrases the question, it learns from its mistake. Engineers can review anonymized transcripts of these failed interactions to identify weaknesses in the system and retrain the AI models. This is why a brand new assistant can feel a bit clumsy at first, but it gets noticeably better over months of use. It is learning from the collective experience of millions of users, constantly refining its understanding of language and the world. This reliance on data creates a huge advantage for the big tech companies like Google, Amazon, and Apple. They have millions of users interacting with their assistants every day, generating an enormous stream of data. This gives them a massive resource for training and improving their AI. A smaller company or a new startup would find it very difficult to compete because they simply do not have access to that kind of data. This has led to a situation where a few large players dominate the market, as their products naturally get better and better, leaving competitors further behind. The data makes the rich get richer, so to speak. However, this constant collection of data is a double-edged sword. While it is essential for making assistants better, it also creates a significant dilemma. This data is not just abstract information. It is a record of our questions, our commands, our interests, and our daily routines. It is a window into our personal lives, the very thing that makes these assistants so useful. Their ability to learn from us is also what makes them a potential risk to our privacy. This tension between performance and privacy is one of the most important challenges facing the future of voice assistants, and it is a trade-off that we are all making every time we say, "Hey Google" or "Alexa." The biggest concern with voice assistants is privacy. These devices are designed to be always listening. They need to be so they can hear their wake word, like Alexa or Hey Siri. The companies assure us that the device is only recording and sending audio to the cloud after it hears that magic word. However, there have been instances of accidental activations where the device mishears a word and starts recording private conversations. The thought that a microphone in our home could be recording us without our knowledge is deeply unsettling for many people. It turns a helpful device into a potential surveillance tool in our most private spaces. This issue goes beyond accidental recordings. To improve their services, tech companies often have human contractors review a small percentage of anonymized voice recordings. The goal is to check if the assistant understood the request correctly. While companies say these clips are not linked to user accounts, news reports have revealed that these reviewers sometimes hear distressing or highly personal moments. The idea that a stranger could be listening to your family arguments, your private conversations, or your children playing is a major privacy violation for many. It crosses a line, turning users into unwitting participants in the AI's training program, whether they like it or not. This creates what is known as the privacy paradox. We say we value our privacy, but we continue to use these devices because they are so convenient. We are willing to trade a bit of our privacy for the ability to easily play music, set timers, or control our homes. The convenience is immediate and tangible, while the privacy risks feel distant and abstract. Tech companies are aware of this. They have introduced more privacy controls, like the ability to delete your voice history and physical microphone, mute buttons on smart speakers. But the fundamental trade-off remains. For the assistant to work well, it needs data about you. As these assistants become more integrated into our lives, the potential for what some call intelligent surveillance grows. Imagine an assistant that knows your daily routine, your shopping habits, your political views, and even your emotional state. This information is incredibly valuable to advertisers and marketers. The fear is that this data could be used to manipulate us, showing us targeted ads or content designed to influence our behavior. The line between a helpful assistant and a sophisticated marketing tool could become very blurry. We are inviting these devices into our homes, and we need to be very careful about how much we let them know about us. The future of voice assistants is moving beyond just understanding our words. The next major frontier is understanding our emotions. Researchers are developing emotional AI that can analyze the tone, pitch, and rhythm of our voice to detect our feelings. Imagine an assistant that can tell if you're happy, sad, or stressed. If it detects frustration in your voice, it could respond with more patience. If it senses you're having a bad day, it might suggest playing some calming music or a funny podcast. This would make interactions feel much more empathetic and human, turning the assistant into a more sensitive and supportive companion. This evolution is part of a larger concept called ambient intelligence. The idea is that technology will become so deeply embedded in our environment that it will essentially disappear. The assistant will no longer be confined to a speaker or a phone. It will be everywhere, in our cars, our glasses, our appliances, and even the walls of our homes. It will use a network of sensors to understand the context of our lives without us even needing to speak. For example, it might notice that you just got home from a run and automatically turn on the air conditioning and suggest you drink some water. It will anticipate our needs before we even express them. This future is powered by the dream of artificial general intelligence, or AGI. This is a hypothetical type of AI that would have the cognitive abilities of a human. It could learn, reason, and solve problems in any domain, just like a person. While we are still very far from true AGI, the progress in large language models is a step in that direction. A future assistant with AGI-like capabilities would be an incredibly powerful partner. It could help us solve complex scientific problems, manage intricate global logistics, or provide personalized education to every child on the planet. The potential benefits are almost unimaginable. However, an emotionally intelligent ambient assistant also presents some scary possibilities. An assistant that can read our emotions could also manipulate them. A company could use that information to sell us products when we are feeling vulnerable. An ambient system that is always watching and listening could create a world with no privacy at all, where our every move and mood is tracked and analyzed. The development of AGI also raises profound questions about control and safety. How do we ensure that an intelligence far greater than our own remains aligned with human values? The next frontier is exciting, but it is filled with both promise and peril. As we look to the future, the role of voice assistants in our lives is set to become even more profound. They are evolving from simple tools into complex companions. With advancements in emotional AI and generative language, it is easy to imagine a future where these assistants become our confidants, our creative partners, and even our friends. People are already forming emotional bonds with today's AI chatbots, sharing their hopes and fears with them. An assistant that can remember your life story, understand your feelings, and offer supportive advice could become an indispensable part of many people's social lives, helping to combat loneliness. This deeper integration raises a fundamental question: will these assistants augment our lives or control them? On one hand, they have the potential to make us smarter, more creative, and more connected. An ambient assistant could handle all the mundane tasks of daily life, freeing up our time and mental energy for more meaningful pursuits. It could act as a perfect memory, a personal tutor, and a health coach all in one. It could empower us to achieve more than we ever could on our own. In this optimistic vision, they are partners that help us become better versions of ourselves. On the other hand, there is a darker possibility. As we become more reliant on these assistants, our own skills could diminish. Why learn to navigate when your car can drive you? Why learn to write when an AI can do it for you? We could become passive consumers of technology, guided by algorithms that are designed to keep us engaged and compliant. The assistant that knows you better than anyone could use that knowledge to subtly influence your decisions, from what you buy to what you believe. In this dystopian view, the helpful friend becomes a gentle overlord, managing our lives for us, but not always for our own benefit. Ultimately, the path we take will depend on the choices we make today. It will depend on how we design these systems, what values we embed in them, and what regulations we put in place to protect ourselves. The technology itself is neutral. It is how we choose to use it that will define our future. Will we build assistants that empower individual autonomy and creativity, Or will we build systems that prioritize engagement and profit above all else? As these digital minds become ever more present in our lives, we are left with a final, open question. What kind of relationship do we truly want with the machines we are inviting into our world?